My name's Brourman, and I'm a physical therapist and a yoga therapist, and that's the baseline for why I get to be here giving this beautiful course. And so I have been a physical therapist for 45 years and a yoga therapist for someplace around 17 years. And I have had a very lucky career and professional life in terms of having amazing, brilliant, horse's mouth teachers. And so I land here out of the grace of having had them and having them. So to the question of how yoga therapy is different from yoga, they both ascribe to the very ancient and beautiful principles of yoga. They both integrate all of the layers or koshas of our being. They both include yoga postures, asanas, lifestyle, meditation, and pranayama, or breathing work. So to that extent, they're just the same. What makes yoga therapy different is, first, it was mostly done as an individual, one-on-one modality, and it was as close to physical therapy as it got in that world. The big difference, well, there's a couple, but one big difference between yoga therapy and physical therapy is that in yoga therapy, the mission is to empower your student or your client. And it's not that in physical therapy it's meant to disempower, but it does. You give out stuff for them to do, and that you don't explain why, you don't teach, and you don't address all of their layers. You just address the linear physical stuff that you're seeing. In yoga therapy, you're more of a guide. You give guidance that helps bring people to their understanding of how a shoulder pain became a mouthpiece for a life of stuff going on around their thorax and heart and lungs and breathing, and the experiences that happened in the process of that development, so that in the end, because all you did was ask the questions that gave them the chance to develop their own story, that's self-empowering. They get to leave with their life in their hands and move forwards from there. And that's very, very different from what I learned in physical therapy school and in my early years as a physical therapist, and even very different from what I felt as a yoga student and teacher. Because of the diversity that I get to have by combining these two fields, I get to address lots of different levels of physical therapists still and yoga therapists. And I have taught a class for about 10 years to physical therapists, which is called Using Yoga Therapeutically. And that's really interesting too, all different levels. Sometimes they've never heard the word namaste. Sometimes they don't know what downward facing dog is. And that course was developed to give physical therapists a way to manage the patients who are coming in who are hurt by their yoga practice. So they want to know, what do I give them when they get injured coming up from twisting triangle? And so that was the sort of seed that planted that course, and that's obviously very different from the book that I'm writing called Using Yoga Therapeutically, which is crossing my two fields. But I'm attached to the name, definitely. And also I teach all of the, it's not just this body of material anatomy to yoga therapy. I teach a course that I love called Seeing Bodies. And I taught at the Loyola Marymount University program for a whole bunch of years, 5 or 7, I forget. But at the end of that course, they all called me Naked Eye MRI. That was my nickname. Because I'm really, something about the years of my experience has made it so that I feel pretty comfortable looking at bodies and grasping what's going on in there and how they're moving and how they're being fed by their perception of movement and their proprioception. I'm pretty comfortable with that. Not always, but I have a comfort level with that's nice. And my work in teaching the course called Seeing Bodies is to articulate that, so to demystify it so that the people I'm teaching can do it as well as me. And that's being successful. I've been asked to teach that class a lot. And that's one of the courses that can be done as a one-day course if it's real introductory and basic, or it can become a 5 or a 10-day course if I get into the real depths of it. So it goes anywhere from there to there, and I love all of the different ways that I get to give it. And I teach, some more physical therapy-based classes, like things like healing your knees within your yoga practice or healing your neck within your yoga practice, and they're all fun. And I've learned that you can peer in from all different layers and levels, and that they're all interesting, and that better than that you get the same information from watching how someone breathes as you get from watching how somebody walks, as you get from watching how someone puts their dishes away. And once you're tuned to looking for the fluidity of movement versus an awkward movement, or the amount of ground support in a body versus someone who's not using gravity at all. And that's something that you can really give. I have students who are 10 years old, and I have lots of students who are 90 years old. And the material traverses all of that, because we're all in a dance with gravity. Gravity's the boss of all of us. When all is said and done, gravity rules. And so the basics for everything that I teach are really under the umbrella of how do we manage these crazy asymmetric machines. None of us is symmetric, when gravity is doing everything it can to pull us into the ground. And that each of us has a body story that tells how we learned, to the extent that we did, how to manage that situation of getting pulled down and lifting ourselves up in spite of it all of the hours that we're awake.